Chosen one, lock your attention on this message right now. That feeling you have been carrying this week, like you do not quite fit, like you are somehow too much and not enough at the same time. I need you to set it down for the next few minutes, because what I am about to tell you is going to reframe everything. The enemy is working overtime right now for one reason and one reason only. You have started to stand out, and he cannot stop what is already in motion. It all shifts in the next 24 hours. The confusion, the isolation, the quiet that has felt more like rejection than peace. But here is what you need to hear clearly. It is not shifting because the storm finally got tired. It is shifting because of who you have been in the storm. Think back to that moment this week when you walked into a room and something changed. Maybe you felt eyes on you and could not explain why. Or maybe you were in a conversation and something you said landed differently than you expected. Heavier, more powerful than you intended. You brushed it off. You minimized it. You told yourself it was nothing. But it was not nothing. That was the moment they saw it, and they have not been able to stop thinking about it since. You did not arrive at this message by accident. The algorithm did not surface this for you. The Most High did. This is a divine appointment, scheduled long before you typed a single search or scrolled a single feed. You are standing at a threshold, and what happens in the next few minutes could change the entire trajectory of how you see yourself. Stay until the very end, because in the next few minutes, I am going to hand you the verdict that explains why certain people in your life have grown quiet, grown distant, or grown hostile, and it has nothing to do with your failure. I am going to walk you through the exact spiritual anatomy of what happens when the chosen person begins to operate in their true frequency. And at the end, I am going to give you the declaration that seals your identity, so no assignment of diminishment can touch it again. Do not click away. Your future self is on the other side of this message, and if you leave now, you leave before you receive the thing you have been asking heaven for. I know what the last 72 hours have felt like. The atmosphere around you has not just been tense, it has been strange. Charged. Like something invisible has shifted in your environment, and nobody will name it out loud. Maybe you were in a conversation this week and you noticed someone change their tone when you spoke. Something behind their eyes shifted. Not warmth, something else, something harder to name. Or maybe you found yourself sitting alone at the end of the day, replaying interactions in your mind, asking yourself why certain people who used to celebrate you have gone strangely cold. Or perhaps you woke up at 300 in the morning with your heart racing, a heaviness pressed against your chest, a low voice in your thoughts telling you that you are the problem, that you did something wrong, that you have made yourself too visible, too loud, too bold, and now you are paying the price for it. You feel it, that suspended feeling, like you are caught between who you were and who you are becoming, and the people around you are reacting to a version of you they did not give you permission to be. And in that suspension, the enemy has been whispering a very specific lie. Listen to what has been playing in the background of your thoughts. He is telling you that the tension you feel around certain people is your fault. He is replaying that moment when you did not shrink, that moment when you spoke with authority, that moment when you walked into a space and did not apologize for taking up room. He is using the reaction of other people as evidence against you. He is telling you that if you were truly chosen, people would celebrate you, not resent you. And because they are pulling back, because the room shifted, because things feel uncomfortable, you must have overstepped. You must have been wrong. You must have misread the call on your life. But I need you to hear what the scripture actually says about this moment. 1 Samuel 18:6-9 records something extraordinary. After David defeated Goliath, the women of Israel came out singing and dancing with this declaration: Saul has killed his thousands, but David his 10,000s. And in that moment, the scripture says that Saul was very angry, and the saying displeased him. From that day forward, Saul kept a jealous eye on David, not because David sinned, not because David sinned, not because David overstepped, but because David shone, and the shine exposed something in Saul that Saul could not live with. Listen to what that means for your life right now. The tension you feel in certain rooms is not evidence of your failure. It is evidence of your failure. It is evidence of your frequency. People do not resent mediocrity. People do not lose sleep over the ordinary. They only go quiet, distant and cold when they are standing in the presence of something they recognize as chosen and cannot deny. They are talking about you, not because you have done something wrong, because you have done something right, because you have started to walk like someone who knows who they are. And that walk, that posture, that frequency, it is eating them alive because it reminds them of what they have not yet become. The heaviness you feel right now is not punishment. It is not the consequence of being too much. It is the weight of a mantle that has finally been placed on shoulders that are strong enough to carry it. You are not in a season of rejection. You are in a season of separation. And separation is what happens right before elevation. That moment when you refuse to shrink, that was not arrogance. That was assignment. Drop a comment below and tell me, what is one moment this week where you stood out, and instead of celebrating it, you second-guessed yourself? They see it, they feel it, and no matter how hard they try to explain it away, they can't. There is something about you that refuses to be ignored, and that thing, that undeniable quality, is not something you manufactured. It was placed in you before you had the language to describe it, before you even knew you were different. It's a resonance, an unnameable frequency that vibrates from your very core, a sacred signature imprinted by the divine architect himself. And right now, in rooms you've never entered, in conversations you were never invited to, people are trying to figure out what it is. They're dissecting your walk, your decisions, your resilience, because something in them knows that what you carry is real, and they don't know how to hold that truth without feeling the weight of their own unlived potential pressing back against them. It's as if they're standing at the edge of a vast, unexplored ocean and can sense the immensity of its depths, a depth that reflects the untapped reservoirs within their own souls. They see your light, and it casts a shadow over the darkness they've grown accustomed to, a shadow that illuminates what they've left behind. Some messages don't just inform, they activate. They strike a chord deep within the soul, awakening dormant potentials and igniting a holy fire. If something stirred deep in your spirit just now, a whisper of recognition, a tremor of truth, you may be ready to receive the Chosen One's blueprint. This sacred guide reveals the 8 divine patterns behind your calling, your suffering, and your destiny. It's a celestial map, charting the intricate pathways of your divine purpose, illuminating the hidden springs of your spiritual journey. It also comes with the full audiobook, so you can absorb it during prayer, rest, or quiet moments with God, letting its wisdom seep into the very fabric of your being like the gentle rain upon parched earth. And for those called to speak His truth, those whose tongues are meant to be instruments of His revelation, you'll also receive Activating Your Prophet Mantle, a powerful bonus ebook for those carrying a prophetic assignment. It's designed to equip you, to empower you, to anoint you for the sacred task of delivering His message with clarity and conviction. The link is in the first pinned comment, but only for a limited time. This is a window of opportunity, a sacred invitation to step into a deeper understanding of your divine mandate. Now here is where most people get it wrong. They see the attention, they feel the tension in the room, a palpable energy swirling around them, and they immediately try to shrink. They pull back, as if a sudden spotlight has exposed a vulnerability they desperately want to conceal. They start editing themselves, speaking softer, dreaming smaller, making themselves easier to digest, like a meal seasoned down to blandness so as not to offend any palate, and they call it humility. But what God is calling you to right now is not humility, it is holy courage, because there is a difference between being humble and being hidden. Humility says, I do not need the applause. It is a quiet knowing of one's worth, independent of external validation. Hiding says, I am afraid of what happens if I take up the space that was made for me, a fear that paralyzes and stunts growth. And the enemy has been counting on you to confuse those two things your entire life, to trade the strength of righteous confidence for the illusion of safety in obscurity. Think about David. Before he ever stood in front of Goliath, a seemingly insurmountable giant, he had already been standing in fields that no one celebrated. He was out there under open skies, alone with the elements, in the vast quiet of the night, learning the weight of a sling, the subtle art of aiming true, learning the sound of God's voice when there was no crowd to witness it, no echo chamber of praise to amplify it. His was an education in solitude, a deep communion with the divine that forged his spirit in the crucible of the unspoken. And when Samuel came to Jesse's house to anoint the next king, every other son was presented first. Every more obvious choice, the ones with the imposing stature and the outward appearances of leadership, was brought forward. David was so overlooked, so absent from the minds of his own family, that his own father didn't even call him inside. He was literally out tending the sheep, a task considered menial, a sign of his low status. And yet the anointing had been resting on him in the field the entire time, a sacred mantle woven by his faithful service and his unwavering heart. The conversation was already happening in heaven about David long before it happened on earth, a divine decree being ratified in the courts above. What you're experiencing right now is the same thing. The conversation about you did not begin with your critics, with the whispers and the sidelong glances. It began in eternity, a celestial pronouncement predating your earthly existence. And what people are sensing when they talk about you, when they watch you with that mixture of admiration and discomfort, is the residue of that heavenly conversation clinging to your life, an uncontainable essence that defies easy categorization. But here is where it goes deeper. And this is the part that most people are not prepared to hear. The reason their words sting even when you know better, even when you've prayed about it, even when you've forgiven them in your heart, is not because you are weak. It is not a sign of an inherent fragility. It is because you were never designed to be indifferent to connection. God wired you for community, for belonging, for being truly seen, not merely observed but deeply understood. Our souls yearn for authentic communion, for the warmth of shared experience and mutual affirmation. And when the very people who were supposed to celebrate you, the ones who should have been your staunchest allies, become the ones who quietly work against you, who cast shadows where there should be light, something in your spirit grieves that loss, that betrayal of belonging, even when your mind knows the truth of your divine calling. That grief is not a sign of doubt. It is a testament to your humanity, a sign that you are still fully alive and connected to the emotional currents of life, even in the midst of a divine assignment that often requires navigating turbulent waters. And staying with me through this next part is important, because what's coming will reframe everything you thought that grief was telling you. It will illuminate its true nature and its divine purpose. Here is what no one talks about. The people who are secretly discussing your rise, the ones watching from a careful distance, measuring your progress against their own stagnation, they are not your enemies in the traditional sense, not demonic forces actively seeking your downfall. They are mirrors. They are living reflections of what you have overcome and what they have yet to confront. Every time someone is unsettled by your presence, what they are actually encountering is the version of themselves they abandoned, the dream they buried beneath layers of practicality and fear, the call they silenced because it felt too audacious, too inconvenient, the risk they refused to take, opting instead for the comfortable and the predictable. And when they see you still walking, still building, still choosing God over comfort, still embracing the sacred path, it does something to them that they are not spiritually equipped to process. Their own inner conflict is triggered, and this inner turmoil manifests outwardly. So it comes out as gossip, as veiled criticism, as that strange cold energy in a room that used to feel warm, a subtle shift in the atmosphere that speaks volumes. But understand this, you are not the cause of their unrest. You are the reminder of it. You are the living embodiment of what they could have, should have been. And there is a profound difference between being the instigator of a problem and being the catalyst for someone else's awakening. This brings us to something most people miss entirely. Your standing out, your refusal to blend into the background, is not an accident of personality. It is not some inherent charisma you were born with, or some random luck you stumbled into. It is the visible result of invisible obedience. It is the outward manifestation of a consistent, often silent commitment to a higher calling. Every time you chose the narrow road when the wide one was right there, beckoning with its ease and its popular appeal. Every time you stayed faithful in the season that felt completely fruitless, like tilling barren ground, believing in a harvest that remained unseen. Every time you worshipped through the confusion, instead of letting the confusion become your conclusion, choosing to trust the heart of God, even when the path was obscured. That obedience accumulated, not like dust settling, but like precious stones being laid, one upon another, forming a foundation of unwavering integrity. It built something in you that cannot be faked and cannot be stolen, a spiritual architecture designed to withstand any storm, and people can feel it even when they cannot name it. They are not really talking about your success in the mundane sense. They are reacting to the weight of your consecration, the profound spiritual investment you have made, and they don't have a category for what they're witnessing. It transcends their understanding of worldly achievement. And what's coming next will likely shift the way you see every hard season you have ever walked through. It will reframe your perspective on the trials and the tribulations, revealing them not as detours but as deliberate design. Stay with me, because there is a pattern that runs through the lives of every person who was chosen for something the world wasn't ready for, something that required a radical shift in perspective and a profound transformation of character. And the pattern is this: before the elevation, there was always an isolation. Before the platform, there was always the wilderness. Before the recognition, there was always the rejection. Not as punishment from a vengeful God, not as abandonment by a distant father, but as preparation so specific, so precise, that only the thing God was building in you could have survived it. It was a crucible designed to refine, to strengthen, to equip you for the immense weight of your destiny. Think of Elijah under the juniper tree, one of the most powerful prophets in Scripture, a man who commanded fire from heaven, lying in the desert, telling God he was done, utterly spent, convinced of his own failure, not because he lacked faith in God's power, but because he had poured everything out, his strength, his spirit, his very being, and was running on empty in a season that showed no signs of turning, no glimmer of hope on the horizon. And what did God do? He didn't give Elijah a sermon on perseverance. He didn't rebuke him for his perceived weakness. He let him sleep. He sent an angel to nourish him, to replenish his physical and spiritual reserves, because God understood that what Elijah needed in that moment was not more instruction or correction. It was restoration. It was a divine replenishment of his well. And then when Elijah had eaten, when his strength had returned, the angel came back and said, "Arise and eat, because the journey is too great for you." The journey ahead required that Elijah be full, that he be equipped with more than just his will. He needed divine sustenance. And the reason you are watching this right now, in this exact moment of your life, is because the journey ahead of you requires that you be full too. You need to be restored, replenished, and prepared for the path that lies before you. But let me challenge you with something before we go further. You have been in a season of being talked about, a season where whispers and opinions have swirled around you like autumn leaves in a windstorm, and some part of you has been waiting for it to stop. Waiting for the day when people finally get quiet, when the gossip settles, when the tension in the room disappears, when you can finally breathe freely without the weight of judgment. But what if the noise around your life never fully goes away? What if the conversation about you is not something that ends when you finally arrived at your destination, but something that intensifies, that grows louder the closer you get to your ultimate purpose? Jesus did not walk into less opposition as he stepped further into his assignment. He walked into more. The more he revealed of the Father, the more he challenged the status quo, the more the resistance mounted. The miracles didn't silence the critics, they multiplied them, fueling their disbelief and their anger. And the question God is asking you right now is not whether you can handle the silence, whether you can find peace in the absence of external noise. It is whether you can keep walking in the noise, whether you can maintain your divine trajectory amidst the clamor and the chaos, your gaze fixed firmly on Him. Coming up, the one thing you've been calling a delay that is actually the most strategic move God has ever made on your behalf. It's not a setback, but a setup for something greater. Because here is the truth about every season that felt like it was costing you something. Every moment of loss and hardship, nothing about your story has been wasted. Not the betrayal that cut deep into your trust. Not the year everything fell apart, leaving you scrambling to rebuild from the ruins. Not the relationship that ended without explanation, leaving you with unanswered questions and the lingering ache. Not the opportunity that dissolved right before it was supposed to materialize, leaving you with a hollow sense of disappointment. Everything was being used. Every tear, every setback, every moment of pain was being woven into the intricate fabric of your destiny. And I know that can sound like a comfortable spiritual phrase, a platitude meant to soothe and console, but I want you to hear it as the confrontational truth that it actually is. Because if nothing was wasted, then the thing you are most tempted to resent right now, the trial that feels like an insurmountable obstacle, is actually a crucial thread in the tapestry of your life. And pulling it out, through bitterness, through withdrawal, through deciding that God has somehow mishandled your story, that He has made a mistake, pulling it out unravels more than you know. It disrupts the divine design and diminishes the beauty of the whole. And this is where the real weight of this message lands, where the profound implications become clear. The thing that has been blocking you, the invisible barrier that has seemed to halt your progress, is not the people talking about you. It is not the delay, though it has felt like an eternity. It is not the enemy, though the enemy has certainly been active, seeking to sow discord and despair. What has been quietly slowing the movement of your destiny, like a hidden anchor dragging beneath the surface, is the unresolved identity question that sits at the center of everything. The part of you that still, on a quiet Tuesday morning, when the usual distractions fade, wonders if you are actually who God said you are. Not because you lack faith in God's power or His promises, but because the gap between what heaven speaks over you, the divine pronouncements of your worth and your purpose, and what your current circumstances reflect, the often harsh realities of your daily life, is sometimes so wide that standing on that word, believing it in the face of contrary evidence, requires a strength that feels beyond you. And rather than naming that gap honestly, rather than bringing that specific doubt, that deep-seated uncertainty, to God in prayer, most people just get busy. They fill the silence with activity, trying to outrun their own questions. They serve harder, as if relentless action can build a bridge over doubt. They post more, seeking external affirmation to quell inner insecurity. They push forward without ever stopping to say, in the vulnerable honesty of a soul laid bare, I believe, but help my unbelief. And here is the part you probably did not expect, the revelation that will shift your focus entirely. The people talking about you are not your real challenge. Their opinions, their judgments, their projections are merely external noise. Your real challenge is this: you have been more moved by what they see in you, by their fleeting perceptions, than by what God says about you, by His eternal, unchanging truth. Let that settle. Let that sink into the deepest recesses of your being, because their recognition, even the kind laced with jealousy, even the kind wrapped in criticism, has become a strange, distorted mirror you've been using to confirm your own worth, to gauge your value. And until you stop needing the conversation about you, whether it is praise that inflates your ego or opposition that wounds your spirit, to tell you who you are, to define your essence, you will remain tethered to the very dynamic you are trying to transcend. You will be a leaf blown by the winds of external opinion. The moment you become fully anchored in your identity before God, rooted in the unshakable truth of His love and His purpose for you, the room changes. Not because people change their opinions or their behavior, but because you stop needing them to. Your internal landscape is transformed, and that transformation radiates outward. Place your hand on your heart and speak this with me, letting the words resonate within your very soul. I release every label that was placed on me by someone who could not see what heaven sees. I release the need for the conversation about me to confirm what God has already spoken over me. I am not defined by those who celebrate me, and I am not diminished by those who cannot. I break every agreement with smallness, with hiding, with the fear of my own light. I step fully into the season God has prepared, not because the road is clear, but because the one who called me is faithful. Every delay was a design. Every rejection was a redirection. Every moment I was overlooked was a moment heaven was watching. I am not behind. I am not forgotten. I am not an accident. I am chosen, not by my own merit, but by divine intention. And I walk forward from this moment knowing that the conversation about me in eternity was settled long before it ever started on earth. I am seen. I am held. And I am exactly where I am supposed to be. If this word confirms something your spirit has been carrying, a truth that has been stirring within you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Let this message ripple outward, bringing light and clarity to others. And drop the word chosen in the comments, so I know this landed, so I can see the resonance of this truth. Because this message was not an accident, and neither are you. You are a masterpiece of divine intention, a unique expression of God's love and power, placed on this earth for a purpose that is both profound and eternal.